A few years ago, a simple PDF resume or a basic portfolio website was enough to impress clients and employers. But today, that's not the case anymore. The internet is flooded with portfolios, and if yours looks like everyone else's, it just gets lost in the noise. Now, imagine this. A recruiter, a potential client, or a tech company lands on your portfolio, and instead of scrolling through a plain page, they're greeted by a fully interactive 3D experience, something that instantly grabs their attention. They can explore your work, interact with animations, and experience your creativity firsthand. That's the power of a modern 3D portfolio. It doesn't just tell people what you can do, shows them. In this tutorial, I'll teach you how to create this stunning 3D portfolio website using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Spline from scratch. You don't need to be an expert in 3D design or coding. I'll break it all down step by step, making it easy to follow. By the end of this video, you won't just have an incredible 3D portfolio to showcase, you'll have mastered everything from fundamental HTML, CSS, and JavaScript concepts to advanced techniques. You'll learn how to seamlessly integrate 3D models from Spline, customize their color, shape, and size, and add interactive effects like hover animations and click event listeners that can link to your social media or project pages. We'll also cover how to personalize your 3D model with your own image in just a few simple steps, implement a hover-triggered spotlight effect on bento cards, and build an interactive project section where hovering over each project plays its preview video. Additionally, you'll discover how to add smooth scroll animations using the AOS library, and of course, ensure the entire design is fully responsive across all screen sizes. I'll guide you through every step with clear explanations, making sure no detail is left out. If you find this valuable, a like and subscription go a long way in supporting our channel and helping us bring more high-quality content to you. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Before we start coding, I've prepared some images, basic HTML and CSS files, and project showcase videos that you can download from GitHub. While I recommend using your own project videos for a more personalized touch, you can access all the resources from the repository linked in the description below. Once you're on the GitHub page, consider giving the repository a star to support the project. To download the files, you can navigate to the Images folder, click on an image, and download it individually. Alternatively, you can click on the Code button to download the entire project as a zip file. Once downloaded, simply extract the zip and drag the files into your preferred code editor to get started. Now, let's take a quick look at what we have. Our HTML file has a simple structure, and we've already linked the CSS file inside the head section. Speaking of CSS, we've set up a gradient background, which you'll see when you open the HTML file in your browser. If you'd like to customize this gradient, you can use gradient.io, just search for it on Google. This tool allows you to select linear or radial gradients and customize the colors. Once you're happy with your selection, it'll generate the CSS code, which you can simply copy and paste into the body element in your CSS file. This is especially useful if you plan to change the color of the 3D planet, as it lets you match the background for a more cohesive look. Now that we have our setup ready, let's move on and start building the header section. Inside the body tag, create a header element. Within this header, we'll add a div with a class name of logo, where you can place your logo or simply use your name as text. Below this, we'll add a button element with the class name contactBTN, containing the text contact. This will serve as our call to action button. With the HTML in place, let's move on to styling. First, we'll set the text color to white and apply a 3rem padding to the body to give it some space around the edges. Next, we'll reset some of the default styles that browsers apply, like margin and padding, so we have a clean slate to work with. We'll also set the box sizing to border box to ensure that padding and borders are included in the element's total width and height, preventing any unexpected layout issues. Finally, choose a nice, clean font family to make sure the text looks modern and readable. Now let's style the header. Set its display to flex. Align items to the center, justify content with space between, and add a bottom padding of 2rem for spacing. Moving on to the logo, increase its font size to 1.5 rem and add 2 pixels of letter spacing for a more refined look. Next, let's style the contact button. Set its padding to 0.5 rem for the top and bottom and 2 rem for the sides. Adjust the font size to 1 rem, give it an RGB background color, and add a star 1 pixel solid border with a matching color. Round the corners with a 50 pixel border radius, set the cursor to pointer, and change the text color to white. To make interactions smoother, apply a 0.3s transition effect. When the user hovers over the button, change the background color to a specific hexadecimal color for a subtle yet effective hover effect. And that's it for the header. Now let's move on to the next section. Let's head back to the HTML file and start working on the main content section. Below the header, create a main element, and inside it, add a div with the class name title-section. This section will contain an h1 element with the text Web Developer as the main heading. Below that, we'll create another div with the class name location. Inside the div, add a paragraph tag to showcase your location and use line breaks to stack each word on a new line for a neat display. With the structure in place, let's switch over to the CSS file to style this section. First, target the main element, set its overflow to hidden, and apply display flex with a column direction. Use justify contents between to evenly distribute its content and set a minimum height of 85 VH to ensure it takes up most of the viewport. For the title section, add a top margin of 3 rem to create some spacing. Now, let's style the H1 inside the main section. Center the text, set the font size to 12 rem, make it bold, increase the letter spacing to 5 pixels, and set the line height to 1 for a compact and structured appearance. Since this might be too large for smaller screens, we'll make it responsive later. To enhance its appearance, we'll add a text gradient effect by applying a linear gradient background with 2 RGB color values. Then, we'll change the text color to transparent and use background clip text to make the gradient fill the text itself. Moving on to the location section, we'll add a top margin of 2 rem, set its display to flex, arrange the content in a column, and align the items to flex start. For the tag inside, we'll apply the same gradient effect as the H1, but this time the gradient will run from left to right, allowing you to customize the colors to match your design. Once again, we'll set the text color to transparent and use background clip text to achieve the effect. Finally, let's set the font size to 1.5 rem. And that's it for this part. Now let's move on and start creating the bio text section. Inside the main element, create another div and give it the class name bio section. Within this div, add a p tag with the class name bio. Here, you'll describe yourself and your experience in a paragraph. To highlight certain words in a different color, wrap those parts of the text in a span element. Then, using inline styles, adjust the color of the specific text you want to change. Once that's set up, let's move on to styling. Head to the CSS file and target the bio section. Set its margin top to auto and the margin bottom to 2 rem for proper spacing. For the bio class, set the font size to 1 rem, the line height to 1.6, and the font weight to 300 for a lighter feel. Add letter spacing of 1px to improve legibility and give the text a bit more breathing room. Finally, set a max width of 22 rem to control the text's width and keep it nice and centered. Now, before we dive into the 3D element, let's add a scroll down indicator. This will be helpful if you plan to continue building out the rest of your portfolio, but feel free to replace it with any other element if you prefer. To do this, head back to the HTML file and inside the main element, create a div with the class name scroll down. Move to the CSS file and target the scroll down class. Set its height to 5 rem and width to 2 rem, and position it absolutely on the page. Place it 2% from the right and 5% from the bottom to give it a subtle yet effective placement. Add a border radius of 50 pixels to create rounded corners, and set the cursor to pointer so it's clear to the user that it's interactive. For a nice touch, add a box shadow to give it some depth and make it stand out on the page. Now, we need to add the arrows inside the scroll indicator using the before and after pseudo elements. First, leave the content property empty, as we don't need any text. Position both pseudo elements absolutely with top 20% and left 50%. Set both width and height to 10 pixels and apply a transform property with translate magnus to 50% made 100% slar to center them properly. To give them the arrow look, add a rotate 45 dag transformation. Add a 2px solid border with a light gray color, but to make them look like arrows, remove the top and left borders by setting them to transparent. Next, let's define the animation for these arrows. Create an animation called scroll down that will run for 3 seconds with an ease and out motion and loop infinitely. To make the arrows stack on top of each other, target the before pseudo element and adjust its top position to 30%, adding a 0.8-second animation delay so that it doesn't start at the same time as the other arrow. Now let's define the keyframes for the scroll down animation. At 0 cent, set the opacity to 0 so it starts off invisible. As the arrows move from 30 to 60% of the animation, gradually change the opacity to 1, making them visible. Finally, from 60% to 100%, fade the arrows out again, setting their top position to 90 cent to move them to the bottom of the element. This creates the smooth scroll effect you want. And now, everything works as expected. But here's where the fun really begins. We're going to add our 3D element from Spline. Spline is a powerful, user-friendly 3D design tool that allows you to create and integrate 3D elements into websites seamlessly. Unlike traditional 3D design tools that can be complex and require advanced skills, Spline simplifies the process, enabling designers and developers to build stunning interactive 3D models directly within their web projects. The first thing you need to do is sign up for an account. Once you're in, head over to the community section from the left sidebar. Here you'll find a wide selection of 3D elements created by other users. The great thing is that you can use the remix option to modify almost any published element and integrate it into your projects. Simply choose a model you like, click remix, and you'll be able to customize it. For this project, I've already prepared a modified version of Tim's 3D model to save time. You'll find the link to this model in the description box of this video. Click on the link, and when the page loads, select Remix to start editing. After the editor loads, you'll see the viewport where you can modify the elements. Before making changes, you'll need to unlock the grouped elements from the left side dashboard. Now, let me show you how to customize the link so that when users click on the moons, it opens your personal link instead of mine. By default, if you preview the model and click on these elements, it will redirect to my YouTube channel, but we can easily change that. The process is similar to a JavaScript click event, where you attach an event listener to an element. Our goal is to find the element that has the existing event applied. In this case, the two moons have the event, so we need to navigate through the layers. From the left side panel, open the planetary group, then expand the rotating path 2, and finally open the moon 2 group. Inside, you'll see two moons, one is embedded within the other. If you select the first moon, you won't see any events. That's because the click event is applied to the second moon. Click on that one, and now you should see the mouse down event. If, for some reason, the event doesn't appear, don't worry. Just continue with the steps, and I'll show you how to manually add your custom URL link to the model. To achieve this, start by clicking on the plus icon, which brings up an event panel. At the top of the panel, you'll notice a Start option. Click on it to initiate an event. There are a variety of events you can choose from, but for our purposes, we'll be using a mouse down event that functions just like a click event. Below that, you'll see a range of actions available, such as transitions, animations, sound effects, particle control, video, and of course, the Open URL action we're going to use today. Hover over the Open URL option, click the plus icon, and then select Open Link. This reveals the field where you can input your custom URL, say, for example, google.com, as a placeholder. Once you've added your link, close the panel and click on the View option at the top. At this point, remember that we've attached the link to the second moon, so clicking on it should now open the Google page. This approach allows you to effortlessly add links to your social media profiles, project portfolios, or any other destination you'd like your visitors to reach. We then repeat this process for the first moon. This time entering linkedin.com. And when you check the view, it will confirm that everything works perfectly. In the Spline environment, almost everything you see can be customized. You can modify colors, shapes, sizes, positions, camera angles, lighting, and even animations. The platform allows for super smooth transitions, hover effects, click-based interactions, scroll-triggered animations, and even sound effects. And just to clarify, Spline isn't sponsoring this video, but their platform is incredibly useful for us as web developers, so why not give them a shout out? Now, let's move on to customizing the colors of some elements in your 3D model. We'll begin by focusing on the nav sphere, which represents the planet in your design. On the right-hand panel, you have access to a range of styling options, such as size, position, material properties, color, Fresnel effects, lighting, and outlines. This allows you to tailor each layer's color to perfectly match your vision. Next, shift your attention to the other sphere by opening the cursor group and selecting the cursor sphere element. The process is identical, simply adjust its color until it suits your overall aesthetic. After that, consider the particles that follow the cursor. From the right panel, select the particle emitter, and you'll notice it consists of two complementary colors. You can modify these colors as desired and then preview the changes to ensure everything looks cohesive. Now, let's examine the cube element. This component is composed of two text elements along with the cube itself. For the text, you can modify the content, adjust the size, choose a different font family, and explore several other options to enhance its appearance. If you click on the cube icon, you can change its color and material, perhaps selecting a subtle blur color to give it a unique touch. Let's take a quick look at the model. Right now, it might not look perfect since I've just randomly picked some colors, but you can customize it however you like to match your style. For now, I'll stick with the initial version. Now that we have our 3D model ready, the next step is integrating it into our website. The process is straightforward and doesn't take much time. First, click on the Remix button and wait for the page to load. Once it's ready, click on the Play button to preview the model and see how it behaves. Now head over to the Export panel, where you'll find different options to embed and share your 3D design. From here, select the Public URL option and open the Play Settings panel. In this section, you'll see customization options like removing the Spline logo, but since that's a premium feature and we're using the free version, the logo will remain visible. No worries about that. What we can do, however, is tweak other settings. With the free version, you can still hide the background, enable or disable interactions like panning and zooming, and adjust various other display settings. Once you've made your selections, scroll to the bottom of the panel and update your public URL. Next, navigate back to the Overview section and select the Viewer option. After waiting a few seconds, you'll see an embed code. Go ahead and copy it. Now switch over to your code editor, open your HTML file, and paste this code inside the body tag below all other elements. At this point, if you open your project page, you should see the 3D element seamlessly integrated into your website, bringing it to life with depth and interactivity. But what exactly is happening here? When you export a 3D model from Spline using the integrated embed code, it consists of two key elements, the Spline viewer element and a script element. The Spline viewer element is a custom HTML tag provided by Spline, which acts as a container for displaying the 3D model on your website. It includes attributes such as the model's URL and allows for interaction within the web page. The script element is responsible for loading the Spline viewer library from an external source, ensuring that your 3D model renders correctly and remains interactive on your website. Without this script, the Spline viewer element won't function properly. And that's it. With just a few simple steps, we've successfully integrated a 3D model into our website. Now let's move on and refine our design to make it look even better. The first step is to grab the Spline viewer element and place it inside the main element, giving it a class name of Planet 3D. Then head over to your CSS file and target this class, setting its position to absolute with a top value of -20% and a right value of 14%. Adjust its size by setting the width and height to 130% to ensure it fits well within the layout. Great! We've successfully completed our hero section and it's looking fantastic. Now let's move on to the next section of our project. Head over to your HTML file and right below the main element, create a new section and assign it a class name of About section. This section will introduce the About Me part of our website. Inside this section, start by adding an H1 element with a class name of About Title and set its text to About Me. This will serve as the heading for this section. Next, create a div with the class name Bento Grid. This container will hold 4 individual cards that provide structured content about different aspects of our profile. To create the first card, add a div element and give it a class name of card. Since we need 4 cards in total, simply duplicate this div 3 times. However, to differentiate each card's purpose, assign an additional unique class to each one. The first card should have an extra class of intro, the second card should be tech, the third should be time, and the fourth should be passion. At this stage, we have set up the structure for our About section. Before adding content inside each card, let's first take care of the styling. So now, navigate to your CSS file, and let's style our Bento grid to ensure it has a clean and visually appealing layout. The .about section has width 100 cent, making it span the full screen, and margin top 20 rem to create space from the previous section. It uses display flex, flex direction column, align items center, and justify content center, ensuring all content is centered and stacked vertically. The .about title uses font size 5 rem for a bold, prominent look. It applies a background image with a linear gradient from gray to white, making the text visually appealing. The color, transparent, and background clip text ensure that only the gradient is visible through the text. The .bento grid is structured with display grid, allowing precise placement of elements. It has height 90 VH and width 90%, making it large but contained within the viewport. The grid template columns repeat 3 1FR, divides it into 3 equal columns, and grid template areas assigns a custom layout. A gap 1.5 rem ensures spacing between elements. Each dot card has a background with a subtle gradient, creating a semi-transparent effect. The border 1px solid RGBA 255 255 0.1 gives it a soft outline. With border radius 24px and padding 2 rem, it appears smooth and well spaced. The transition on transform, border color, and box shadow ensures smooth hover effects. And overflow hidden prevents content from spilling outside. We define card-specific areas. Each card is strategically placed in the grid using grid area, ensuring an organized layout. The .intro section has a min height of 300px, while the .text section is slightly larger at min height, 450px, giving it prominence. The time and passion sections are smaller with min height, 220px, ensuring the overall layout remains balanced and visually appealing. Next, we add hover effects to each card. When hovering over a card, the border color transparent removes the border, while box shadow 010px 30px RGBA 0000.5 introduces a subtle shadow, creating a raised effect and adding depth. Additionally, the transform translate y -5px gently lifts the card, boosting interactivity and giving the user a sense of responsiveness. Now let's integrate a modern spotlight effect. We apply a radial gradient inside each card using the before pseudo element. Positioned absolutely with inset 0, the gradient spans the entire card, fading from a soft cyan to transparent. By default, it has opacity 0, but on hover, the opacity transitions to 1, adding a subtle lighting effect at the cursor's position and highlighting the card. Great. Now, to make this hovering effect actually work, we need JavaScript to handle the process. So let's create an app.js file. Inside this JavaScript file, we will dynamically update CSS variables to create an interactive spotlight effect on each card. Here's how it works. First, we use document query selector all to grab all elements with the card class, ensuring every card gets the effect. Then we loop through each card using for each, attaching a mouse move event listener. This means that whenever the mouse moves over a card, we trigger a function that tracks its position in real time. To do that, we use get bounding client rect, which retrieves the card's dimensions and position relative to the viewport. This helps us determine exactly where the mouse is inside the card. Next, we update two CSS variables using set property. --x stores the x coordinate of the mouse inside the card. --y stores the y coordinate of the mouse inside the card. These values are then fed into our CSS, specifically within a radial gradient, allowing the spotlight effect to follow the cursor smoothly. Also, make sure to include the app.js file in your project. To do this, add a script element inside the body tag of your HTML file and set its src attribute to app.js. This ensures the JavaScript code runs properly and applies the interactive effects as intended. Now that we've structured the About Me section, it's time to add specific content to each card. Let's start with the intro card. Within this card, begin by adding an h2 element with a class of card title. This will serve as the title of the card. Next, immediately below the heading, insert a paragraph element where you can briefly introduce yourself or share a personal message. Following the paragraph, include an image element with the class name background image and link it to the file named gradient1.png. This will provide a dynamic background effect for your card. Finally, add a div with the class modelBox, which will later serve as the container for a 3D model. Before proceeding to add and style the elements for the other cards, let's focus on refining this first card. Open your CSS file and start by targeting the card title to define its appearance. We use the .card title class with a font size of 2 rem, font weight of 300, and a margin top of 4 rem to create a refined and spacious look. The text color is set to white for maximum contrast, ensuring readability. The .card text is styled with a soft gray color 7B7B7B, a line height of 1.6 for better spacing, and a max width of 30 rem to keep the text compact and neat. For the background styling, the .background img within the .bento grid is positioned absolutely with inset -1%. Slightly larger than its container to create a dynamic background effect. With object fit cover, the image fills the space without distortion, sitting behind the content thanks to a Z index. All right, now we're at the final step for our intro card, adding a 3D model of your personal picture. To get the model, I've provided a link in the description box of this video. Click on the link and you'll be taken to the Intro 3D model page. Once you're there, look for the duplicate button and click on it. This will create your own editable version of the model. Now let's customize it by replacing the placeholder image with your own. 1. On the left-hand dashboard, locate and click on the PNG file. 2. Now, look to the right panel, you'll see an image element. Click on it. 3. This will open the Upload option, allowing you to replace the existing image with one of your choice. 4. Select the image you want, then preview the model to ensure everything looks good. Once you're happy with the customization, it's time to export the model and integrate it into our project. 1. Go to the public URL settings. 2. Click on the Play Settings option and disable the Orbit option. This prevents unwanted rotation. 3. Update the public URL, then go back to the overview page. 4. On the right-hand side, select Viewer and wait for the embed code to update. 5. Copy the embed code and paste it inside the body tag of your HTML file. Now let's check if it's working. Perfect. Next, cut the Spline viewer element we just exported and paste it inside the .model box div within our intro card. Awesome. Now let's move to the CSS file to adjust its position and size. Start by targeting the .model box class to ensure it fits seamlessly within our layout. In terms of 3D integration, the .model box is placed absolutely at the top right with right 5%, top -25%, sized at 30 rem by 30 rem, creating a bold presence. To target the 3D model, open the HTML file and add a class named Info3D to the Spline viewer element. This will allow you to style and manipulate it efficiently. The .info3D extends beyond its container with a width and height of 150%. And a mix blend mode, lighten ensures smooth integration with the background, creating a seamless effect. Great. Now let's move on to adding content for our second card, which is the tech card. Head over to your HTML file and locate the .tech card. Inside this card, start by adding an H2 element with the text tech stack. This will serve as the title. Directly below it, insert a paragraph element where you'll briefly describe your technical skills, such as programming languages, frameworks, and tools you use. Next, add 2 image elements. One will serve as the background image, adding depth to the design, and the other will be the skills group image, visually representing your tech stack. Assign appropriate class names to these images so they can be styled later. Now let's move on to styling. Since the H2 paragraph and background image share the same class names as the previous card, they are already styled, meaning there's no need for additional adjustments. The only element that requires styling is the skills group image. Set its position to absolute so it can be freely placed within the card. Adjust its position by setting the bottom value to push it upwards slightly and the left value to align it properly within the layout. Finally, define its width to ensure it scales proportionally within the design. That completes our tech card. Now let's move on to adding content for our third card and setting up its elements. Start by adding an H2 element, just like in the previous cards, and give it a class name of card title. Customize the text inside it to reflect what this card is about. Directly below, insert a paragraph element where you can describe your location. This could include your city, country, or even a short note about where you work from. Next, add the background image, which will be shared between the third and fourth cards, ensuring a consistent visual theme. Now let's include a button element with the class name BTN. This button will serve as a contact button, allowing visitors to reach out. To enhance its design, we'll add an icon from Boxicons. Head over to boxicons.com, and once you're there, click on Usage at the top right of the page. Scroll down until you see Usage as a font. Then, copy the provided code and paste it inside the head section of your HTML file. After setting that up, go back to the main page of the website and search for a send icon. Click on the one that best fits, select the font option, and copy the generated code. Paste this inside the button element, followed by the text Contact Me. Now, before moving on, let's fix a couple of small mistakes in our styles. Open your CSS file, scroll up, and locate the styles for card-specific areas. There's a typo in the word passion, so correct that to ensure everything is properly styled. Then scroll further up to find the styles for the card itself and check the RGBA value to make sure it's correctly formatted. With those fixes in place, the hover effect should now work seamlessly. Finally, let's style the button. Target the .btn class and set its position to absolute so it can be positioned precisely within the card. By setting bottom 10%, the button maintains a balanced spacing, preventing it from sticking too close to other elements. The padding is set to 0.75 rem, 1.5 rem, providing comfortable touch and click areas. The background color is a semi-transparent cyan using RGBA, allowing it to subtly blend into the design without overpowering other elements. The text color is a soft teal, complementing the modern aesthetic. To maintain a smooth and rounded look, the button has a border radius of 50 px, giving it a pill-shaped appearance that enhances its modern design. There is no visible border, keeping it clean and minimal. The cursor is set to pointer, ensuring clear feedback when hovered over. Now, to make the button more dynamic, we apply a transition effect of 0.3 SEs, allowing smooth changes when hovered over. On hover, the background shifts to a solid teal and the text color turns black, creating a clear visual contrast. That wraps up our third card, and now it's time to move on to the final card, the Passion card. Just like the previous cards, we'll start by adding an H2 element for the title, followed by a paragraph element where you can describe what drives you, whether it's coding, design, or something else you're passionate about. Finally, we'll include an image element to visually enhance the card. Since all necessary styles are already applied through shared class names, no additional styling is required for this card. And with that, our About section is complete, and it's looking amazing. Now, let's move on to the Projects section, where we'll showcase the work and experiences that define your skills. Inside the HTML file, just below the About section, we'll create a new section with the class name Projects section. We'll start with a heading that clearly introduces the section. Below the heading, we'll add a slider element designed with custom CSS variables. These variables define its width, height, and the number of items it holds, allowing for easy customization if you want to showcase more projects. Inside the slider, we'll structure a list of project items, each represented by a looping video element. Each project item is positioned strategically using a custom CSS variable, ensuring a balanced and structured display. Instead of static images, these videos provide dynamic previews of the projects, automatically playing when the user hovers over them. JavaScript will handle this hover interaction to enhance the experience. To complete the project showcase, we need to add 4 more items by duplicating the existing project item and updating the video source for each one. Additionally, we'll adjust the position property for each item to ensure they are evenly spaced within the slider. Each new project item follows the same structure as the original, but with a unique video source to display different projects. Now that the HTML structure is complete, let's move on to styling the projects section with CSS to create a smooth and visually engaging experience. We start by targeting the projects section class. This section spans the full width of the page. A large top margin is added for balanced spacing between sections. To maintain a clean look, we set overflow to hidden, making sure the moving elements inside the slider don't trigger unwanted scroll bars, ensuring a fluid and immersive experience while keeping everything neatly centered using Flexbox. H3 element is styled with a margin bottom of 5% and a font size of 5 rem. To enhance its modern aesthetic, we apply a linear gradient to the text. Instead of setting a solid color, the text is made transparent, allowing the gradient to shine through for a sleek and professional effect. Next is the slider itself, which takes up 100% width and dynamically adjusts its height using a CSS variable. A masking effect is applied using a gradient, subtly fading the edges of the slider to create a smooth transition as videos move in and out of view. Inside the slider, the list of project items is laid out with Flexbox, and its width is dynamically calculated based on the number of projects, ensuring perfect alignment. Each item inside the slider has a dynamic width and height controlled by CSS variables, making it adaptable to different screen sizes. Positioned absolutely, the items start at left 80%, allowing them to move freely within their container. The key animation, auto run, smoothly moves each item over 10 seconds in a linear, infinite loop. To create a staggered effect, each item's animation delay is calculated based on its position, ensuring a seamless, continuous flow. A transition effect further enhances smoothness, making any visual changes feel natural and fluid. Each video item is styled with a slight margin from the top, taking up the full width of its container, with softly rounded corners for a polished look. We use keyframes to actually run the animation. The auto-run animation smoothly moves elements across the screen, making it perfect for sliders or scrolling effects. It starts with the element positioned completely off-screen to the right at left 100%. As the animation progresses, the element moves left until it exits entirely on the other side, reaching left calc var dash width minus 1. This ensures a smooth, continuous motion, ideal for carousels, marquees, or auto-scrolling banners. When looped infinitely, it creates a seamless sliding effect, keeping content in constant motion. To enhance interactivity, we add hover effects. When the user hovers over the slider, the animation pauses, allowing them to focus on a specific project. Additionally, all projects are displayed in grayscale by default, and hovering restores their original colors while slightly enlarging them, making them stand out. Great. Now we want each video to start playing automatically when hovered over. This functionality will be handled using JavaScript, but before we dive into that, let's first set up our HTML structure properly. Head over to your HTML file and assign a unique ID to each video element so we can easily target them in JavaScript. You can use IDs like Project Video-1, Project Video 2, Project Video 3, and Project Video 4 to keep things organized and structured. Once the IDs are in place, it's time to switch over to your JavaScript file. Open app.js and grab these video elements so we can begin working with them dynamically. First, we select each video individually using getElementById, then store them in an array for easy management. This allows us to apply the same behavior to all videos efficiently. We then loop through each video using forEach, attaching two event listeners. The first event listener detects when the user hovers over a video, triggering the play method. This means that instead of auto-playing all videos at once, each project preview comes to life only when the user engages with it, keeping the interface clean and reducing unnecessary distractions. The second event listener detects when the user moves their cursor away, calling the pause method. This ensures that once the user stops interacting, the video stops playing, preventing continuous playback and unnecessary resource usage. This simple yet powerful interaction makes the user experience feel intuitive and polished, adding a layer of responsiveness that makes the website feel more modern, professional, and engaging without overwhelming the viewer with too much movement at once. Great. Now let's move on to building the contact section, where visitors can easily get in touch. Head over to your HTML file, and just below the Projects section, create a new section and give it a class name of Contact-Section. This section will serve as the final part of our web page, making it easy for users to reach out. At the top, the section header introduces this part of the website. The heading Get in Touch is bold and inviting, immediately setting the purpose of the section. Below it, a short description encourages visitors to reach out, whether they have a project in mind or simply want to connect. This adds a personal touch and makes the interaction feel more open and approachable. The contact grid is divided into two main parts, one for contact information and another for social media links, ensuring an organized and intuitive user experience. We have a contact info card. This section is designed to provide direct communication details in a structured format. The email field offers a clickable link for direct email access, making it easy for visitors to send messages. Now we need to add two more contact items to complete this section. Instead of creating them from scratch, simply duplicate the existing contact item 2 times to maintain consistency in the layout. For the second item, we'll include details about your phone number, making it easy for visitors to reach you directly. The phone number field provides a direct way to make a call. The location field offers information on where the business or individual is based, adding credibility and transparency. Each of these fields is styled for readability, ensuring that users can quickly find the information they need without unnecessary distractions. Below the contact details, there's a social media section, which is just as important as traditional contact methods in today's digital world. This section includes links to GitHub, LinkedIn, and Twitter, encouraging users to connect through professional and social platforms. Now, let's move on to the next info card. While it shares the same class name as the previous ones, its internal structure will be different since it will house our contact form. Inside this card, start by creating a div with the class name InfoCardContent. This will serve as the container for all our contact form elements. At the top, add an H2 element with the text Send Message to act as the section title. Next, we need to create the form element. Assign it an ID of contact form written in camel case so we can easily reference it in JavaScript later. Inside this form, we'll organize our input fields into 4 separate form groups, each wrapped inside a div with the class name form group. The first form group contains an input field where users will enter their name. Set its type to text, ID to name, and its name property to name. The placeholder should display your name, and we'll add the required attribute to ensure this field must be filled before submission. Assign it the class form control for styling consistency. Instead of manually creating additional form groups, we can duplicate this structure 3 more times and adjust the necessary details. The second form group will handle the email input. Change the type to email, update the ID to email, and set the placeholder to your email. The third form group is for the subject of the message. Keep the type as text, set the ID to subject, and adjust the placeholder to subject. The fourth form group is slightly different. It will contain a text area instead of an input field. Set its name property to message, assign it an ID of message, and update the placeholder to your message. Make sure to add the required attribute so the form cannot be submitted without a message. Finally, assign it the class form control to maintain styling consistency. Now, just below the form, we need to add a submit button. This button will allow users to send their message. Set its text to send message, its type to submit, and give it an ID of submit B10, written in camel case. For styling, assign it the class message BTN. The last element we need to include is a div that will display a success message after the form is submitted. This message will only appear once the form is successfully sent. We'll handle this functionality later using JavaScript. At this point, we've set up all the necessary HTML elements for our contact section. Now let's move on to styling it with CSS. Starting by targeting the .contact section class to define its layout and appearance. The contact section is designed to be spacious and visually appealing, using well-balanced margins and padding. A 60px padding at the top and bottom ensures comfortable spacing, while 20 rem top margin and 10 rem bottom margin create separation from other sections. Target the .section header class and set its text alignment to center so that the heading is perfectly aligned. Then, apply a bottom margin of 40px to create some spacing between the header and the rest of the content. Next, let's focus on the h3 element inside .section header. To make it stand out, set its font size to 5 rem, ensuring it's large and eye-catching. Also, apply the font weight property to make the text bold. Gradient text effect is applied using a linear gradient from gray to white, making the title more visually dynamic. The text color is set to transparent, and background clip text allows the gradient to fill the text instead of the background. The paragraph below the heading is light gray, limited to 600px width and centered to maintain readability. Next, target the contact grid class. The layout is built with CSS grid, using a single column structure by default. A 30px gap between elements ensures a clean design while maintaining responsiveness. Each info card has a dark background, number 1E1E1E, with rounded corners, 12px, and hidden overflow, ensuring a smooth, professional appearance. A subtle box shadow, 04px, 20px, RGBA 000.3, adds depth, making the card appear slightly elevated. When hovered, the card shifts upward by 5px with a smooth 0.3s ease transition for a refined interactive effect. Inside the card, content is neatly spaced with 30px padding. The card title, H3, is 1.5 rem in size, with a light gray color and 4 rem bottom margin, creating clear separation from the contact details. The contact item class is designed to ensure clear separation between individual contact details by adding 3 rem bottom margin. Inside each item, the label p tag uses bold 600 weight styling. A 0.8 rem bottom margin ensures enough spacing between the label and its corresponding link, and a 777 CE9E6 color to create contrast, making it easy to identify difference of contact information. The contact links, tags, are styled in light gray with no underlines for a clean, modern look. A smooth 0.3s transition on color ensures a visually appealing hover effect, where the text changes to 7CE9E6 upon interaction, reinforcing a dynamic user experience. The social link section is visually separated from other elements with a 30px top margin and 20px padding on top. A 1px solid border, 333, on the top further emphasizes the separation. The paragraph title, P, follows the same bold 600 weight and number 7 CE9E6 color scheme, making it visually distinct. Each social media link is displayed inline block, ensuring they align horizontally with a 15px right margin for proper spacing. The links have a light gray color, no underlines, and a subtle 8px vertical and 15px horizontal padding for a comfortable click area. A dark background of 2D, and 6px border radius give them a modern button-like appearance. A 0.2s transition on all properties ensures a smooth, polished effect. On hover, the links change to 7CE9E6 background with light gray text, The form group class ensures proper spacing between form fields by applying a 20px margin bottom to each input field. The form control class defines the core styling for input fields and text areas. With a 100% width, the 12px vertical padding and 15px horizontal padding provide ample spacing inside the input, making it comfortable for users to type. To achieve a modern and sleek appearance, the background color is set to 2D2D. A border radius of 8px softens the edges, contributing to a more polished and approachable design. For readability, the font size is set to 16px, and the text color is a light gray, ensuring strong contrast against the dark background. Additionally, a 0.3s transition on the border color creates a smooth, interactive effect, making the form feel more dynamic. Complementing the 1px solid border, which subtly defines the field without being intrusive. Upon focus, the outline is removed for a cleaner aesthetic, and the text color changes. The text area.form control is designed for flexibility and user comfort. With a minimum height of 120px, it provides ample space for longer messages while maintaining a clean look. The resize vertical property allows users to expand the text area vertically as needed, ensuring adaptability without disrupting the overall layout. The message button is designed to be fully responsive with a 100% width, ensuring it adapts to different screen sizes. Padding 12px gives it comfortable spacing inside, making it more clickable. Background color RGBA 124-23330.1 applies a subtle, semi-transparent teal background. Color 7CE96 sets the text color to a bright cyan for contrast. Border none removes any default button border for a cleaner look. Border radius 8px rounds the corners. Font size 16px and font weight 600 make the text slightly larger and bold for better readability. Cursor point visibly behaves like a clickable element. Transition all 0.3's ease adds a smooth effect when the button changes state. For the hover effect, we define .message beat hover changes the background to a solid bright cyan, giving an active feel. Color switches the text to dark for better contrast. Now for the success message, which appears after submission. Background color RGBA 16185.129.2 applies a light green background to indicate success. Color keeps the text green, reinforcing the success message. Padding 12px provides spacing for readability. Border radius 8px rounds the edges to match the button's design. Margin top 20px ensures spacing above, separating it from other elements. Display none initially hides the message until it's triggered. When the user clicks the submit button, the success message will appear briefly before fading out. JavaScript will take care of this process dynamically. To make it work, we first need to target two key elements in our script: the form itself and the success message. Since we've already assigned unique IDs to these elements, all that's left is to grab them inside app.js and prepare them for interaction. Here's how to do it. First, we target the form using its ID and listen for the submit event. This means whenever the user clicks the submit button, the function inside will execute. Next, we use prevent default to stop the default form submission behavior. Normally, when a form is submitted, the page refreshes, but we don't want that here. Then we select the success message element and set its display to block, making it visible so the user knows their message was sent. After that, we reset the form using this.reset, which clears all the input fields, preparing it for a new entry. Finally, we use set timeout to hide the success message after 3 seconds. This keeps the UI clean by making sure the message doesn't stay on the screen forever. Once we fill in the required details for each input field and click the Submit button, the success message will briefly appear, confirming the submission. After 3 seconds, it will automatically fade out, ensuring a smooth user experience. Now that we've completed the form functionality, it's time to move on to the final part of our project, the footer. Head over to your HTML file and just below the contact section, create a footer element. Inside this footer, start with an H3 element that contains a customizable text of your choice. Next, create a div with the class name box icons. Inside this div, we'll add 3 anchor tags, each linking to a social media platform. To make this process simple, we'll use icons from boxicons.com. 1. Go to boxicons.com. 2. Search for the YouTube icon. 3. Select the font option and copy the provided code. 4. Paste it inside the first anchor tag. Repeat the same steps for the next 2 anchor tags, choosing any social media icons you want. That's it for the HTML structure. Now let's move on to styling the footer using CSS. The footer is set to display flex, which arranges its content in a row. We use justify content space between to push its inner elements to opposite ends, ensuring a balanced layout. The position is set to absolute, keeping the footer fixed at the bottom of the page by setting bottom 0, while right 0 and left 0 ensure it stretches across the full width. Padding of 2rem 4rem adds spacing inside, and the background color is a semi-transparent shade of teal, giving it a subtle, modern look. All right, we've hit a small issue. The footer isn't displaying at the bottom of the page. This happens because we haven't set a relative position for the body element. To fix this, simply set the position of the body to relative, ensuring the footer aligns correctly within the document flow. Once that's in place, everything should display as expected. Great, let's move on to the next step. Inside the footer, .box icons also uses display flex, which arranges the icons in a row, and gap 2rem spaces them evenly. For .box icons A, we set the text color to light gray and increase the font size to 2rem for better visibility. A transition of 0.5s on the color makes hover effects smooth. Lastly, when a user hovers over an icon, the color changes to 7C96, creating an interactive effect that enhances user engagement. Our website is looking awesome, but when viewed on smaller screens, the layout falls apart, and we can't have that. To ensure a seamless experience across all devices, we need to make our project fully responsive. Let's start with tablet devices, as most tablets have a screen width of less than 1400 pixels. We'll use @media queries to fine-tune our styles, making sure everything adapts perfectly. First, let's target the H1 inside the main element. Set its font size to 6.3rem to make it more proportional. Remove its letter spacing by setting it to 0. The .bento grid class is positioned relative. It uses display grid, making it a grid container, and its height is set to 80 VH. The .card title has a font size of 1.2rem and a margin top of 0, ensuring it stays close to its container without extra spacing. The .card text has a line height of 1.3, improving readability, and a smaller font size of 0.8rem. The .model box is positioned with right 20% and top 10%, which moves it 20% away from the right edge and 10% down from the top. The .intro has a min height of 700 px, ensuring it has enough space to accommodate content. The .time section is assigned a grid area of time, meaning it's part of a named grid layout, and its min height is set to 300 px for sufficient spacing. The .project section has a margin top of 40rem, creating a large gap before it appears on the page. Inside the .slider, .list.item given a width of 40rem and a height of 20rem, defining the size of each slide. The .slider.list has a min width calculated dynamically using calc 30rem var dash and spash quantity, ensuring the total width adapts based on the number of items in the slider. Our contact section and footer already look perfect on tablets, so no changes are needed there. However, when it comes to mobile devices, things get a bit tricky. To ensure a fully responsive design, we need to optimize the layout for screens smaller than 768 pixels. This is where @media queries come in handy again. By adjusting specific elements, we can create a seamless, mobile-friendly experience that looks just as polished on smaller screens as it does on larger ones. To get the best result, we need to replace the H1 element with an H2 element displaying the text Web Dev. Start by hiding the H1 for smaller screens by setting its display property to None. Then go to your HTML file, locate the title section class, and add an H2 element inside it. Next, navigate to your CSS file and scroll down to the existing H1 styles. Directly below that, target the H2 inside the main element and apply the same styling as the H1, but change its font size to 7.5 rem and set the font weight to 700. Initially, keep its display property set to None, but once the screen width drops below 768 pixels, set its display to block and adjust its margin top to -3 rem to align it properly. Now let's refine the bio section. Target the bio section class and adjust its margin bottom to 1 rem. Then, for the bio class, set its font size to 0.8 rem and limit its maximum width to 15 rem to maintain a clean layout. The .bento grid is structured as a single column grid using grid template columns 1 var, meaning each section takes up the full width. The grid template areas define name sections: intro, tech, time, and passion, which help in organizing the layout efficiently. The .about title has a margin bottom of 5% to create spacing below it, and a font size of 3 rem. The .model box is positioned slightly outside its container with right -4%, pushed down with top 27% with scale 0.7. The .project section is pushed far down the page with margin top 80 rem, creating a significant gap. The heading inside this section, .project section H3, also has margin bottom 5% for spacing and a font size of 3 rem for emphasis. Inside the .slider, each item has a width of 20 rem and a height of 10 rem, defining the size of each slide. The .slider.list is displayed as a flex container, and its min width is dynamically set using calc 10 rem var dash quantity, ensuring the total width adapts based on the number of items. The .section header H3 is set to font size 3 rem, keeping consistency in heading sizes. The .contact section has margin top 0, ensuring it sits directly below the previous section without extra space. The .box icons are hidden using display none. Finally, footer H3 has a smaller font size of 1 rem, keeping the footer text compact. Now let's enhance our contact section to make it more structured and responsive. By default, it follows a single column layout, but once the screen size reaches 768 px, we update grid template columns to 1fr, 1fr. This adjustment creates a 2-column structure, making the layout more balanced and visually appealing rather than stacking elements vertically. At this point, our website is responsive on both tablets and mobile devices. But some screens, like certain Samsung devices, are even smaller, and our design doesn't look great on screens narrower than 480 pixels. So, once again, we'll use @media queries to fine-tune styles for screens below 480px. First, we reduce the body padding to 1 rem, ensuring the content isn't too close to the screen edges. Then we adjust font sizes. Main headings shrink to 6 rem, the logo to 1.2 rem, and location text to 1 rem, maintaining a balanced visual hierarchy. Next, the contact button padding is reduced to 0.4 rem, 1.5 rem, with a slightly smaller font size of or 0.9 rem, ensuring it stays proportional. The model box positioning, the right -4% property shifts the elements slightly outside the right boundary. The top 27% pushes it down from the top, ensuring it sits in the right spot within the layout. Finally, footer headings shrink to 0.8 rem, making sure they fit well in the smaller space. Oh, actually, let's fine-tune the positioning. Set the top position of our modal box to 27 cent. All right, we're almost there. Now that our website looks great on all screen sizes, the final touch is to add some smooth scroll animation effects to different elements. For that, we'll use the Animation on Scroll library. AOS, Animate on Scroll, is a lightweight JavaScript library that allows you to add smooth, scroll-triggered animations to your website. To get started, head over to the top right section of the website and click on the GitHub icon. Once the page loads, scroll down until you see the basic installation instructions. First, copy the provided code, head to your HTML file, and paste it inside the head section. Next, copy the provided script code and paste it inside the body tag of your HTML file. After that, go back to the AOS website and scroll down until you see different settings examples. The first animation we're going to use is the fade down animation. Simply copy the code from the div and head back to your HTML file. We'll apply this animation to the header and the title section inside the main element. Now, let's check it out. Reload the page, and you should see that both the header and the title smoothly animate when the page loads. We'll apply the same animation to for the About title, the H3 element in the project section, and the section header in the contact section. And that's it. Let's take a look at the result. Everything should be looking awesome now. Head back to the AOS website, and this time, let's grab the fade up animation. Copy the code, then switch to your HTML file. Inside the main element, apply this animation to the bio section div, but adjust the data AOS duration to 1500 milliseconds for a smoother effect. Next, copy the same animation and use it for the scroll down div as well. Then, scroll down to the About section and apply the same fade up animation to both the card passion and card time elements. Now let's move on to the next animation. This time, grab the fade right animation from the AOS website. Back in the HTML file, add this animation to the card intro inside the About section, and again, set the data AOS duration to 1500 milliseconds for a polished look. Next, copy the same animation and apply it to the card tech. But this time, change fade right to fade left for a nice directional balance. Time for the final animation. This time, use the fade zoom in effect. Copy the code and locate the Spline viewer element inside the main element of your HTML file. Additionally, set data AOS duration to 3000 milliseconds to make the zoom effect more dramatic. Nice. Now let's apply the same fade zoom in animation to our contact section. Just copy the code and scroll down to the contact grid. but this time reduce the duration to 1500 milliseconds for a more balanced effect. And that's a wrap for the scroll animations. Remember, you can always tweak these animations, play around with different effects, and fine-tune them to match your style. Congratulations on completing this amazing 3D portfolio project. If you ran into any issues along the way, or if any part of my explanation wasn't clear, drop a comment below and let me know. Your feedback helps me improve the quality of the content. I'll be back soon with another awesome project, so take care and see you in the next one.